Thank you so much for your comments. The interesting thing, Mayor Longrill. I'm not sure I've got that right. Meron Grill. No. Anyway, says interesting. Ray David Frost. Hereditary peers can renounce their titles, but life peers cannot. You're quite right. You're quite right, and it's something which is strangely unexplored. Under UK law, there are specific acts that govern how life peers and hereditary peers can renounce their peerages. The life peer is created by letters patent by the Crown, and under very, very extreme circumstances can lose the peerage, but they can't renounce it. They were created, originally the life peer was created under the Life Peerages Act of 1958. They're typically appointed for their lifetime. They don't pass the title on to their descendants. And those who wish to do so can resign from the House of Lords according to the Lords Reform Act of 2014, but they cannot renounce their title. Hereditary peers, on the other hand, inherit their titles, which can pass down through the generations, and the Peerage Act of 1963 provides the mechanism for hereditary peers to get rid of their titles. The Peerage Act was set up to enable Tony Benn to renounce his peerage and to take up his seat in the House of Commons, and it allows for the renunciation of peerages under certain circumstances. Now, I think it works. So, first of all, you have to be a peer, and then you have to submit a written declaration, which I think it's called an instrument of disclaimer to the Lord Chancellor. The declaration must be in a very specific form. It must be this clear instrument of disclaimer. It must be lodged within 1 year of the person inheriting the peerage, or there must be some suitable explanation for any delay. And the renunciation, once it becomes effective, the individual cannot subsequently reclaim the peerage. And for hereditary peers, renouncing the peerage also disinherits their descendants from inheriting the title. Now, there's a thing called the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917, which also slightly confuses the issue, because that allows for the deprivation of British peers of their titles from individuals who have supported the enemy during wartime, and specifically during World War I. So the Act is less about a renunciation and more about the forced removal of titles due to disloyalty. However, it does set a precedent for the government to be able to deprive peers of their titles should that be appropriate. I think it is appropriate in the case of Baroness Moon and one or two others. Peers can cease to be members of the House of Lords, but that doesn't deprive them of their title, as, for example, in the case of Lord Ahmed. And in principle, in addition to that, the Crown could, on a whim, cancel and annul honours that it has granted, so presumably also peerages. But today that would only happen with a recommendation by the Cabinet Office, and generally that has been about minor titles like giving decorations to Paula Venables. 4 peers were deprived of their titles in 1919 under the 1917 Act. They were Leopold Charles, the Duke of Albany, the Crown Prince of Hanover, Viscount Taaffe, and the Duke of Brunswick. So all German. And so there's 3 laws involved in this process: the 1963 Act, the 1917 Titles Deprivation Act, and the 2014 Lords Reform Act. I'm sure there will be more, and I'm sure this issue will be revisited in the next Parliament if Sir Keir Starmer decides to proceed with a clean out of the House of Lords in some form.